Hey guys, and we're back here at the end of a late night drink, the last sip. There's the TinyBoxTim thing, minigame they were talking about, and I guess it's more like developers' notes and whatnot. But he did say he added some extra little features and whatnot, so we're going to kind of go through this, and since this was such an incredible custom story, we're just going to check out what he had to say and some of the extras in this game. The development process. Development on a late night drink began at some point in 2012 or early 2013. I can't remember. After I got my gaming PC, one of the first things I bought was AMNESIA so I could play custom stories. About a week later, I realized, oh yeah, I can get the dev tools too. I had dabbled in game development before with things such as Little Big Planet and RPG Maker. My intention was actually to just mess around with it and get an idea of what the tools other CS creators used. In about 3 weeks, I went from knowing literally nothing about scripting or the AMNESIA mod tools to releasing an alpha version of the custom story on the forums. For reference, the original version of I made in 3 weeks was everything in the current A Late Night Drink up to the point where you open the door after falling and seeing a big grunt face behind the door. Personally, I think that much progress in that much time is impressive. Anyway, since people seemed to like what I was doing, I pushed on. Stuff you'll read about in the other room gave me the drive to keep going even when I started having tons of errors and problems with the custom story. I've always had a goal of pushing AMNESIA past its limits. I wanted to make a custom story unlike what people had seen before. For some reason, most devs seem to think that they have to adhere to what was found in vanilla AMNESIA. And I think what he means by vanilla AMNESIA is like... Vanilla AMNESIA, from what I understand, is like the bare bones version of AMNESIA. It has nothing new or converted into it. So I think that's what he means there. So if someone's confused, Google it if I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm sure that it's there somewhere. Anyway, the custom story has to be set in a certain time period, has to deal with certain themes, has to have certain kinds of scares, etc. Being a big fan of Lovecraft, I wanted to build something that revolved around the idea of things man was not meant to mess with, which I suppose it in stark contradiction to my previous statement of wanting to do something different from the norm, as that was largely the theme of AMNESIA itself. One of my favorite horror tropes is the idea of your environment shifting when you're not looking. You did that well, bro. To give you an idea, there's a scene in Grave Encounters where they are trying to break out of the hospital by ramming a bed against the door that leads outside. It finally breaks open, only to lead to another hallway. I love that stuff. Excuse me. And so do I. Unfortunately, it's one of those horror themes that you either like or don't like. A lot of people playing my custom story had a bored reaction of, oh, the hallway changed. But alas, you cannot please everyone. With the Confusion Room, I wanted to take that concept to a high point. If you ever wondered what section of my custom story I was most proud of, well, it was confusion. Another thing at the core of a late night drink is a tragic love story. I don't want to go on about my personal life too much, but my fiancée has multiple sclerosis. Due to this, she has an increase of possible complications during childbirth. The story of Vincent and Anna was born of me thinking of how I'd feel if I lost her. I wanted to write a story of a man who would go to any lengths to see the woman he loved. I had long debated whether to make the story play from the point of view of Vincent or Michael. Not really sure if I ended up making the right choice, but I liked how it turned out. This just really got sad. Two things were pretty divisive when it came to people's reactions. The first were the puzzles. Childhood was meant to harken back to point-and-click adventures I used to play like Sam and Max in Monkey Island. These always had a theme of use everything on everything until something happens. I thought the things you had to do were pretty easy to figure out. Same thing with knowledge. My big misstep was that I had originally intended to have more story elements be found during these sections. At the end of the day, the puzzles ended up harder than they should have been. My bias of having already knew the solutions made it difficult to gauge whether they were too hard or not. That would be hard to gauge. Arrogance was a different story altogether. I had this idea of trying to solve a series of puzzles while something stalked you through the room. Problem is, Arrogance was actually the very last part of the custom story I worked on, including the ending. I felt a crunch to get the custom story done before A Machine for Pigs came out. Still not sure why. And I don't know why either, bro. And thus, I didn't do as much testing as I should have. The other thing some people did not like was the humor room. Some people have said that comedy has no place in a horror game, but I disagree 100%, and so do I. Some of my favorite horror movies, books, games have comedy in them. You are collecting pieces of a man's mind. Why would there not be humor? Besides, there was never intended to be a 100% horror game anyway. Remember earlier when I mentioned people seeming to think you have to stick with a certain style when making Amnesia custom stories? Well, what if I told you they didn't have to only be scary? Still, I hated that pretty much nobody I watched seemed to understand why the grunt was wearing clown makeup. Oh well, the show must go on. In the next note, I will talk a bit about cut content and things that had to be changed during development. He makes so many good points there, and I find it amazing that, a lot of developers just don't really see the writing on the wall, and not really so much the writing on the wall. And what I'm saying is that everything is done over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And DeAngelo made something really special, and that's on the last sip. I haven't even played a late night drink. And when I look it up, every time I look it up, it's like this amazing custom story. And knowing what he's done in this last one further urges me to play it. And I'm going to play it. And even though I know way back in the day I watched Markiplier, I think it was, play late night drink. And watching it, again, and I've said this before, watching it was one thing. Now playing it is something completely different. And I think playing it, I would have the experience that Markiplier had, which was overwhelmingly positive. And I think that's very key in any kind of video game you play. If you're watching it as opposed to playing it. So, next note. Novel preview. I recently started writing a novel version of A Late Night Drink and The Last Sip. I'm doing this for a few reasons. I've always wanted to write, and this is a great way to get back into it. Also, it allows me to tell the story in a way that simply was not possible with the limitations of the Amnesia engine. What follows is a small excerpt from a rough draft of the novel. It hasn't gone through extensive editing or anything, so I apologize. To give you perspective, this section takes place during the part of A Late Night Drink where you first meet the angel statue, and it, thinking you are a demon, drops you into a long pit with a large grunt at the end. One thing you'll notice is that my description doesn't sound like a grunt. This is because I redesigned all the monsters in the novel version to be unique when compared to the monsters found in Amnesia. The source of the light was a bright ring that floated behind her. He supposed it would be called a halo, but it was not a gold ring floating gently above her, rather a large blazing circle of hot fire hovering behind her head like the world's most dangerous bun. It finally hit Michael where he had previously seen this angel, which further inspection showed to be an immobile statue. Stood before him was a life-sized replica of the angel he had found spinning to a lovely tune inside the music box. Michael took a deep breath and spoke. "Hello there." Anything further he could think to say was cut off by a disembodied voice that seemed all at once to come from the statue but also from inside his head. "How dare you taunt me this way? He is safe and you will not trick me. Begone with you, foul thing." The line snapped and Michael was falling. He had just enough time to register that the large carpet was gone, a hole in its place, before he was plummeting through an endless corridor. All around him the floor, walls, and ceiling, unable to make up their minds which was which, sped by. Doors littered the corridor above, below, and to his sides. They all opened a foot or so and slammed shut repeatedly as if they were clapping. Or laughing. He tore his attention from them to look towards where he was falling. There was something white below him. He thought at first that he was falling towards a light at the end of the tunnel. As he fell closer, he found that it wasn't as much pure white as milky white, a sickly sort of off-white that filled him with unease, and he immediately knew why. Just as soon as he had recognized the color of that dreadful eye, grown as large as the entire hallway through which he fell, had it moved aside to show those equally sickening yellow teeth. They opened widely, seeming to struggle to do so. Bits of flesh on its cheek ripped while tendons tore to allow the rotten mouth to open wider than any mouth should. It was soon opened so wide that the hall seemed only to end in darkness, with a row of yellow curtains hanging a foot from the ceiling. As he neared it, he could feel the hot breath and smell that familiar sulfur stench. Each breath the thing took sent chunks of the stuff flinging out in all directions. More and more slapped the walls around him as its breath grew faster and faster, the more excited it was. Unlike Michael, its wish had been granted, and a nice chop was falling from the sky from him to feast on. Michael reached out instinctively in an attempt to grasp one of the doors surrounding him, but they all slammed shut permanently. In a last-ditch effort, just as he passed into the gaping maw, he clung to the set of teeth, his body dangling into the abysmal chasm that being passed off as its mouth. Michael barely registered the pain that shot through both of his hands as the sharp teeth cut into them, and in his blind panic would not have noticed if they severed his fingers clean off. Okay. The thing seemed to notice that its snack was struggling as he heard its bones creaking in an attempt to shut its jaw. Looking behind him, he knew it was working as the second set of teeth were moving nearer and nearer. They were 8 feet away, then 5, then 3. He could feel an eager tongue lapping at his legs. His attempt at using the teeth to climb out, falling due mostly to any pressure he put on them, pushing the cuts deeper. He finally let go and was engulfed by the foul darkness. Okay. Pretty dark there, bud. And again, if you're a fan of Lovecraft, that's very Lovecraftian in its own way. I'm guessing these are notes as well. Okay. Doors we can go to. Cut content. My original vision for a late night drink was actually quite different from the way it turned out. I wanted to have a large house that you explored, and as you uncovered the memories, and as the Hakamura plan affected you more and more, the rooms would keep changing around you. However, I quickly realized that this was something the Amnesia engine really didn't like. For reference in the level editor, you can set objects to active or inactive. That's how I do the whole turn a corner and suddenly the hallway has changed thing. But this constant switching of assets caused a large strain on the system, especially when I'm doing massive chunks at a time. I eventually had to opt for the mind room concept. Due to this, and also due to time constraints, I cut out a lot of the ideas I had. So I'm going to list them here. Probably a mistake, as I could have saved them in case I ever remake them on another engine, but oh well. I doubt anyone is actually reading this. Well, I am. Opening. I wanted a few days to pass in this house before you went into the basement so that you could get to know Michael more as a person. Basement. I wanted there to be a lot more versions of the hallway that loops. I wanted to get progressively creepier to the point where the player starts questioning what is and isn't happening. That, wait a minute, the note said dark before and now it says dangerous moment is a small sign of what I was going for. I even wanted the note to only say dangerous once, then change back to dark if you check it again, but I couldn't figure out how. Humor. I had quite a few more ideas for jokes in the humor room, but I decided I didn't want it to outstay its welcome. One idea I had was a room you get locked into and told to find a key, but there is none. After about a minute, the door unlocks and you get a message along the lines of, fuck it, I'll just let you skip this puzzle since you obviously suck at it. And then as you leave, if you couldn't figure out that the key was under the chair, then I don't know how you even tie your shoes. There would have been no chair in the room previously, but I would spawn one with the key under it at this point. I cut this out. It was actually fully built and added to the game engine already. Because while I meant for it to be a tongue-in-cheek, the lack of voice acting made it seem a bit too hateful. I also had an idea of a computer you could access at this point that would let you play a secret unreleased version of the original Amnesia. That would have been cool. It only would have been one level, but with a bunch of silly things happening. I decided against it as I didn't know if it was allowed to use their levels, and it seemed like more work than it was worth. Knowledge. Knowledge was meant to have... and by the way, so if no one knows, what he's talking about is the original, and he said it at the beginning, just a late night drink. This is not The Last Sip. This is a late night drink and how he came to build this, and you know what I'm talking about. I can't describe things well. So, quite a few books and notes. Knowledge was meant to have quite a few books and notes that you could find with stories in them. Some real excerpts from old stories and stuff I made up. And clues in these stories would tell you where the keys could be found. I ended up not doing this, but didn't bother to make the keys easier to find. Oops. Confusion. The part near the end of Confusion, where paintings and other objects are floating around, was meant to be much larger. With entire rims floating by that you had to navigate, I ended up not doing this due to engine limitations. Limitations which I unfortunately solved during the development of The Last Sip. Oh. The Last Sip. I originally meant for this to take place over a few more days than it did, with more dream sequences. The other shit in my life that made me delay it so long meant that if I tried to do this, it would be 2019 before I released the damn thing. I had wanted to expand greatly on the house and have it be a sort of slow burn as you gradually uncovered secrets. My weakest trait is level design, so all attempts to make the house look interesting to explore were kind of fruitless, and I just ended up falling back on my scripting skills. My largest regret was this custom story is that in some ways it became everything I hate about the indie horror games. Really? A linear walking simulator with scripted scares. I wanted The Last Sip to have more of an epic feeling to it that I don't think I captured. I always joke that Evil Within is what a late night drink should have been, or a late night drink would have been if I had talent. Dude, no. Just Last Sip was better than Evil Within, so don't cut yourself short, bro. I sometimes joke that Sinju must have played my custom story. When there were parts of it that were similar to things I'd done, about a year or so after I released A Late Night Drink, a little something called PT was announced. I don't want to be a dick and yell. I did Repeating Hallways first, but well, I did Repeating Hallways first. All joking aside, I don't for a second think that game ripped me off or anything, but it still is kind of a cool feeling to see a large game from an amazing developer do something similar to something I had done. This is why I included the PT level in the custom story. I know this level will probably annoy some people who will go, really? Are we actually doing this? But screw you. Yeah, screw you guys. It's a tribute. Exactly, it's a tribute. And it's not like I just ripped off the scares or anything. I did my own thing with it. I actually got someone who, when I uploaded my part 3, which had the PT level in it, and I actually put it on the title, someone ripped on me for it. So I understand where you're coming from, bro. And I think it's stupid. Well, anyway, thanks for reading this, David. That may not be your name, but my buddy David is the one person I'm certain will read all this shit, and I wanted to freak him out. Nice. All right, then. Okay, so... Oh, wait a minute. Did I read this one? What? The surprise. I'm going to be completely honest. I expected the reception of my original custom story to be, what the fuck is this? Why would you put this on the internet? It sucks, you suck, and whatnot. So when tons of Let's Players started doing it and seeming to enjoy it, I was blown away. I believe the first big Let's Player to do it was Red Wolf. Though I could be off on that depending on how much you consider to be big. For roughly a year or so after the release of A Late Night Drink, I watched and commented nearly every single Let's Play of my custom story. And though I no longer watch them unless someone huge plays it, mostly because I just don't have the time, but more on that later. I'm still very thankful to the Let's Player community for helping the custom story get to where it is. I always notice huge bumps in page views and downloads after a big YouTuber did it. I'm a huge fan of Let's Play videos. My favorites being Markiplier, Red Wolf, Yummy Storpy, and my friend DeAngelo. Watching people do Let's Plays of my custom story eventually drove me to start my own Let's Play channel, and though it hasn't enjoyed much success, it's been fun. You'll likely be angered to hear that working on my channel was one of the reasons the last sip was delayed so long. It's heartbreaking to realize that there are only so many hours in a day, and my obsession with bringing a high level of passion and, well, obsession to anything I do meant that I really didn't have time for all the things I was attempting to do in my life. For reference, in the last 3 years, I probably played about 4 games for myself that I wasn't recording. But anyway, enough about me. There's another one, bro. Come on. Okay, I need a sip. The last sip, alright? Maybe. Jeez, you like to put a lot of dialogue in your fucking games, man. Marky Moo. I think anyone who has played through both of my custom stories could have figured out that I'm a big Markiplier fan. I've been watching him for a long time. I got a new laptop about 4 years ago, but it malfunctioned and I returned it, deciding to just get a PS3 for the time and save up for a gaming PC. Due to this, I began watching YouTubers to enjoy indie horror games I could not play myself. I sometimes feel really sad that I didn't get to ride the indie game boom during its height. I mean, it's still big, but you know what I mean. To give you an idea of how long I've been watching Mark, I believe the first LP of his I watched was Dead Space 1, and I recall being excited to see a new episode of it, so it must have been when he was still in the middle of it. I did play Amnesia when it launched on my old PC, at 640 by 480 and 15 FPS, and I was still scared shitless. Anyway, one thing I know can be really annoying is when the mood of a custom story or indie game in general is spoiled by a sudden moment of, oh my god, did you know this guy exists? So cool. So I always try to keep my references to a level where they would sail over the heads of anyone not familiar with who I was referencing, or at least not be overly annoying. I had at one point considered adding a Markiplier mode to this that changed up some of the scenes, but that is one of the many things that I didn't make it into development. After I discovered Let's Plays, one of the big things that drove me to make a late night drink was the thought of him one day playing it. This kept me going through some hard times, and seeing him get excited at all the references to him was a great feeling. It was always depressing to see any Let's Players get upset with the puzzles in the custom story, but what upset me most of all was that there was literally a read this if you get stuck text in the custom story folder. The description on ModDB even said to check the text file if you get stuck. I don't know why so many people raged at childhood knowledge and arrogance, but refused to check the help file. I guess maybe it's the I won't let this game beat me mentality. I know, I'm the same way. Just know that frustrating people was never my intention, and I'm really sorry for that. I think you'd be surprised, bro, with what you've done. You know, honestly, that's a real easy forgive and forget. The Monster Room. This room has a simple looping script to make the custom monsters go back and forth so you can get a better look at it. I commissioned this monster from Juris at the Frictional Games forum. My idea was to have a mishmash of body parts with a doll face covering the end. It would not be capable of moving on its own and would instead grasp the walls to drag itself through the halls. Although the final product ended up being a bit more wiggly than I wanted, I still like how it turned out. Although not many people are making custom stories for Amnesia, I wanted to say here that I give full permission for anyone to use this monster however they want. Use it in your custom story, port it to Soma if that's possible, take it and put it in your own game. I only ask that you give credit to Juris for creating it and credit to my custom story for its origin. Something like Worm Monster originally created by Juris for the Amnesia custom story Late Night Drink, the last step. So let's see. Whoa, here you go. Hey, bud. Yeah, we remember you. So does he loop? Yeah. Okay. Right on. Okay, cool. So what's next? I believe that this one is the TinyBoxTim Adventures. What you're about to see is an unfinished minigame I had intended on including in the main custom story as an Easter egg. It was intended to be a full-fledged minigame with many levels, each changing up the mechanics a little. In the end, I realized much of what I was attempting simply wasn't possible in the Amnesia engine. With more time, I may have been able to get some of the ideas working, but this custom story has already had enough delays. What we have here are the 2 levels I managed to make. I must stress that this game is unfinished, so it's actually impossible to die. There are no sound effects or music. I had intended on coming up with some music by taking an action movie style tune from Incompetech and splicing in some random shouts and lines from Mark's videos. Also, there's some occasional glitches that occur sometimes. Basically, during my testing, one out of every 10 or so tests broke the game and caused me to fall through the floor. The controls are simple. Once you walk through the door, take your hand off the keyboard. Don't move your mouse. Simply left click to jump. In the second level, you left click rapidly to move up and stop clicking to move down. Basic, I know, but Amnesia doesn't let you rebind keys to script functions, so it's all I could do. I believe someone does allow for this, so that's cool. Maybe if I ever make a Soma custom story, I can revisit this concept. Enjoy. Well, I'm not sure what to do in here, actually. If I can't move, in the fight against evil, only one man is brave enough, strong enough, tiny enough, and his name is... TinyBoxTim! Lover, fighter, container, Mark's babysitter. Well, okay, so, whoa. I'm supposed to follow this? It's TinyBoxTim. Whoa! Okay, so it's like a platformer, am I right? Oh. Jump, TinyBox! No! You won't get killed. I will save you. Ugh. Oh, stay down. Stay down. Up! Up, 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 really high up. Okay, okay. Nope, you aren't gonna hurt me. Bitches. Oh God, don't hit it. Oh God, don't hit it. Jump. Jump, TinyBox. This is awesome. Tim, I can't see you, Tim. What are we doing, bud? What are we doing? Break through that window. That's right. Or did I fuck up? I don't need to look at the window anymore. Okay. Oh, shit. No! No! Evil teeth thing. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Well, nothing jumps. I'm not sure what's going on. I have no idea. I'm trying to follow Tim. Oh, Tim, I've lost you, buddy. I don't know where you went. Oh. Oh, Tim. Where'd you go? I've lost you. I've lost you. Oh, okay. Okay, well, for this, I think we've actually gone far enough as we need to. I do think it kind of bugged out on us, so. And just so anyone knows, I knew this was coming. This was a bunch of the developers' notes, and I wanted to know more because I was thoroughly impressed by his A Late Night Drink, The Last Sip, and this further encourages me more to play his original Late Night Drink, and yeah, just in case anyone wanted to know. And Markiplier, if you're out there, this guy loves you, dude. Give him a shout out. I'll try and give a shout out. You'll never know it's me. You're about 1 billion times higher than I am on the YouTube level, or even Red Wolf. You know, both of those guys, they're way above my head. But regardless, you know, hey, I cared enough. I can say this much. I cared enough about DeAngelo to actually take a look at it, hear what he had to say. And it was so cool to hear, you know, how this development went and some of the reasons he made his decisions, his changes, and try to get that viewpoint of what a developer does. I can't do it. I couldn't even come close to doing this shit. And what he's done was amazing. So, you know, kudos, straight up, you know, bro fist all the way. That's all I have to say on that. Anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this video. I know it wasn't gameplay. It was meant to. This is what it was meant to do. What you saw was what it was meant to do. If you don't like it, fine. But I wanted to upload it mainly for the developer's sake because I think he deserved it. I really do. And anyway, leave a like and favorite the video if you enjoyed it, and sub to my channel if you'd like to see more. DeAngelo, you're awesome. I hope to see more stuff from you in the future. I really do. And guys, I will see you in the next one. I hope you all have a fucking fantastic day. Here's some liquid courage for you. What was that eye thing? That was dumb.